Hello, everyone. We have a very exciting paint night tonight. I am going to walk you through how to paint your own cat. So here is our long-haired cat version. There is also a short-haired and a hairless version. Buy the kit according to your cat's hair length. But here we have our long-haired cats. With the kits, I wanted to include a lot of these nice little flowers, and that's so you can do your cat kind of surrounded by flowers, or you can do a cutesy little cat crown. So this one's really fun because no one's is gonna look the same. We're gonna get this painted to your own cat, and I'm gonna walk you through multiple different cat fur types and coloring, so don't worry about that. We're gonna have a lot of fun painting our cats tonight. I have the two different setups here where you can have all your flowers just below, or we can have some of your flowers up making a cute little crown. So I'm actually going to be painting both of these tonight. And that is just so you can see two different versions. So I have a light version I'm going to do here and a dark version here. And then just so we can go through all the different fur types. So I am going to start by moving all these little extras aside, and there's a lot of them. So we'll just get these all set up at the top. Oh, and then another thing before we get started, I'll tell you a little bit about my setup. I have just a white piece of paper right below both kits, and that's just to protect my table. And then I have a plastic lid. This is an old margarine container lid. Any old plastic lid or piece of tin foil, anything really to mix colors on will do. And then I have a cup of water and a pencil. So once you get yourself all set up, and then open up all of your paints here. And I'll just get all these little extras aside. Perfect. So here I have the banner that says Weasley. So we'll be painting Weasley. And then this one here has a really nice quote, "You left paw prints on my heart." So there is an option on the website also. So the standard one that you get is this one here that says, "You belong among the wildflowers," which I thought was really, really cute and appropriate with all the little wildflowers that we have. And then this one is also an option, the "You left paw prints on my heart," or you can actually put in a custom name or a custom quote. So that's quite fun where you can really customize the one you're doing. So before we start, line up your kit, and then with the pencil, just trace around the inside. And don't worry if you miss like I just did. We're going to be painting over everything, but this is just so we don't waste a lot of time painting what's going to be behind the cats, because yeah, there's no point in wasting time on that. So I'm going to move these aside, and let's just start with our background. So with the background, you can have a lot of fun. Customize this in any way you'd like, so any colors that are in your house. Really just have fun with the background. So I am actually going to take my yellow, and this one I am painting just straight from my container. But you can have a lot of fun mixing. I'm going to do a light blue on this one here. So if you're interested in doing some mixing, just bear with me while I get a good base coat on this one here. Oh, I really love this tone. So for this one here, we are going to be sticking with browns and golds. And how I actually picked these cats is I did a little contest on my Instagram where I had people submit their cat photos. Which was great because it was one of the best things I ever had to go through was just all of these cat photos. So I picked two winners. So we're doing Harley and we're doing Weasley tonight. So this one is actually going to be Harley with the yellow background. And that's because the owner said that the room this is going in has lots of browns and golds. So I thought that this yellow would be a nice goldy color. And then I'm going to do the frame brown on this one. And then on Weasley over here, I'm going to do blues and turquoise. So the owner said that she has taupe and then turquoise accents. So I thought that would be a nice color. So once you get a nice coat, you don't have to worry about painting right behind the cat, just because that is going to get covered up. Oh, one other thing I have here is just a little piece of paper towel, and that's just so when I clean my brush, you can just pat it dry and make sure if you have any paint residue on the top of your brush, you can just clean that off. Perfect. So we're going to mix the coloring for here. So I'm going to grab a nice amount of white. And then I'm going to grab blue. And then I'm also going to grab some green. And you know what? We actually have quite a bit of background, so I'm going to grab just a bit more white. There we go. I just want to make sure that I have enough to cover this whole area and I won't have to mix more paint halfway through. Okay, so I got all my white here, and I'm going to grab all of this blue and mix it in. And this is just because I know I want just a nice light blue. So I'm going to start with that, and then I'm going to pull just little bits of my green in. So adding white to any color really lightens it up, makes it nice and pastel-y. And then the opposite is adding just the tiniest touch of black. You can actually make it look a little vintagey. But, so I'm going to grab just a little bit of green. So if you saw, I'm like about a quarter of what I did of blue. And this is just to make the blue a little bit more interesting. I like it when it just has a little bit of a turquoisey tinge to it. And because I'm going to be doing the frame turquoise, I just feel like that's going to match it really well. That's a really nice color, so that's exactly what I'm looking for. Yes, yeah, just a really nice powdery blue. Perfect. And with your background, you can also get creative and you can add in polka dots or stripes. You could put in a pattern of any sort, like you could do plaid, you can really get creative and have fun with your background and try to show a bit of the personality of your pet in the background. So I think the blue, I'm just going to leave it blue and keep it simple. The Weasley's owner wanted it a little bit more simpler without the flower crown, so I think just a nice solid background will be nice and simplistic. But I'm going to add a few little polka dots to Harley's here, so I think that'll be quite cute. So I'm just going to get a really nice, let's get a nice coat on your back. So I'm going to add just really small polka dots to this one here, and I can show you just a sample of one that is I already finished. So this one here is actually my cat, Mr. Hemingway. So this is the very first set I made. So your set is much more complex. I added a lot more flowers, but for the background, I just did a really light green, and then I did a nice dark blue frame, and then I added little polka dots. So you can really have fun with your background. With the yellow here, I'm gonna add very small polka dots, so a little smaller than what I did on my Hemingway one. I don't want them to be as noticeable just because I'm not sure what the owner thinks about polka dots, but I love polka dots. I would make everything with polka dots. So all I did was I got my white paint and a little bit of water in my fine brush, and I'm using just the end just to add a little polka dot. This is also something, if you're not quite sure if you want to add it yet, you can wait till the end until everything's all ready to go, and before you glue it, you can add this in later. So if you're not 100% sold on adding in a pattern, you can, you can wait till the end. So I'm just spacing out my polka dots as I go and just keeping it nice and simple, but I think it's just gonna add a really cute little personality. As you can see, I got a little bit of a white dribble there. I don't know what you'd call it. But don't worry if you make any mistakes. The best thing about acrylic paint is you can just paint over it. There is no such thing as a mistake. So I got just some of my yellow paint, and it's like it never even happened. So just really have fun and make your piece your own. Awesome. So I am pretty happy with that for my backgrounds. And the paint is a little wet, but you don't have to worry too much. You can kind of grab your piece and see if that's what you're looking for. And yeah, I think I like what I went with there. So I am going to move these aside to dry. So once you're happy with your background, we are going to pull out the main event here. So some tips for painting your cat. One of the things I like to do is have a printed out photo of my cat or whatever cat you're going to paint. So if this is going to be a gift for someone, it honestly is very helpful to have it printed out. So I will just kind of show you all of my references here. So these here I made, it's almost like a little bit of a coloring sheet. There is a link to this in the listing. You can download this for free, you can print one out, and this is just a really nice practice. So if you have a cat with very complicated coloring, I would recommend drawing it out just on this little coloring sheet here. So yeah, it's linked right through the listing. You can download it for free and print it. And then that's what we'll need our pencil for as well. So this is one of the cats that I'm going to be painting. This is Harley. So in this photo, she looks like she's quite brown, but the close-up here, she's got brown just kind of in the nose area, and then she's got actually quite a bit of gray. So it looks like the gray, so we got a little bit of brown here. The gray very much runs in the kind of the main part of her face here, and you can actually see it in the tones here. So I'm going just off of photographs where with you and your cat, it's going to be a little bit easier just because you know exactly which coloring you're working with. But having these printed out photos is really going to come in handy when we're painting Harley. And then the other winner was Weasley here. So Weasley, yeah, very nice light coloring. We got nice amounts of white here, and we got the orange. But what we're going to start with is just a base coat. So if you have a cat similar to Weasley, for your base coat, we're going to do a very, very light orange. So I'm talking this color here. And the reason I pick this color is because the majority of her fur is this light tone, and then she has white, and then she has some darker orange. So by starting with the medium base color, it's going to be the easiest to add in all of our fun little extra colors. And then for Harley here, I'm actually going to do, I think my instinct's to go brown, but I think I'm actually going to go gray. I'm going to go this, like a light medium gray. So really, if you have a complicated cat, really any color, you can't really make a wrong choice. But if we were doing someone like Pandora here, I would start with pure white. So I would do, because the majority of her coloring's white, I would do a base coat of white. Same with Nimbus. Shadow, Shadow, you could either do the light orange or the light gray, and then we'll add the other color in afterwards. So yeah, if your cat is a mix between a couple colors, just kind of go with your gut and start with what you think the most coloring. I keep saying she, he or she. We have a boy and a girl cat, so I don't know why I'm saying she. If you're working with someone like Bumble here, I would go a medium brown. Harriet and Faye. Oh, these cats. I just had so much fun, guys, looking at all these cat photos. I would go a light orange if I was doing Harriet. And Faye, I would go a gray. I would be going these lighter tones in their coloring versus going the darker. And Jadzia, I would go white because she's got majority white and then just a little bit of fun coloring to bring in. We got a few more cats to go through. Oh, we have all of our little orange cuties. Each one of these, I would start with the medium orange, just like I'm gonna do Weasley. This little one here, all her coloring is absolutely adorable. I would still go with orange on her, and then I would add that little bit of black in afterwards. So right now I'm just going over base coating, so feel free to fast forward if I've already talked about your cat, and you can get base coating. So with my whole, oh, not my whole bottom row, Whiskey, Richer, and Gin, I would do black. Because we only have a little bit of white and a little bit of white, I would do my base coats of black. This little cutie here, I would do white, just because our full mane is white, and then we have our detail coloring here. So right now we are just working on a base coat. Bear would be all black. Oh, little Winchester. Winchester, I would do white. Because the majority of the mane and then the whole front of the face is white. So that would be a good one to start with white. Penny, oh, Penny was she was second runner-up to being picked. She's got such cute coloring. I would start with white. She's got, yeah, tons of white. That's a good place to start. And Bibs. You guys, just way too much fun doing this. Bibs, I think I would go with white, just because it's easier to cover light colors with dark paint than if you start really dark and you have lots of white to add in. You could just use up more paint and more time. So that's all of our cats that was submitted. If you have a very interesting coloring, feel free to message me, send along your cat photos. I'd love nothing more than to look at your cats and to help you out with any coloring if I didn't go over your cat here. So awesome. So let's get into the base coating, and then we'll use that little coloring sheet once we get into the actual detail. But a base coat, I like to start all one color, nice and easy. So Weasley, we are gonna do a nice orange. So I am gonna grab a good amount of white. And then we're gonna wanna grab a little bit of red. And I'm just gonna put that here. And then we're gonna need yellow. So I'm actually gonna grab a little bit of this yellow and a little bit of this yellow. Yeah. So if you're doing any other base coats, black, you can just go straight from the paint pot here. If you have a light brown or a gray cat, for light brown, you're going to want to mix our dark brown here with white, and you're going to want like quite a bit of white to just a little bit of color to start. And then for gray, quite a bit of white and a little bit of black, but we'll get to gray right after we mix our orange here. Yeah, sorry, this is an interesting tutorial just because everyone's cat is quite different. So I'm going to start by just mixing these all together and just kind of see what kind of an orangey tone I'm getting. And then I'm going to just grab a little bit of white and just kind of see what See, I think I want this a little bit more yellow. This is a little bit red for what I'm looking for, but I'm going to grab all this white. I'm just going to go for it, and I'm going to mix all this together. Yeah, we're going to want to mix just a little bit more yellow for this one here. And it is good to always have your reference photos close. And that's the other thing you can do, is just add a little bit of paint and you can just have a little peek. So yeah, this is a little bit ready. I want it to be a little bit more yellow. So I am just going to grab my yellow here, and I'm going to grab just a little bit more white. And just a little bit, yeah. Perfect. And I'm going to mix all that together. Let's see here. That's pretty good. I'm actually going to add more white. So just adjust your coloring as you need to. Yeah, I'm going to grab another good amount, and I'm going to just going to mix it here and just kind of slowly add the color in. This is all the fun is mixing the right tone. Let's see. And that's very much what I'm looking for. So just needed less color and a little bit more white. But this will be a nice base to start with. So we had, let me see over here. So with your color, just give this just a really good base coat. And feel free to go over this line a little bit. We'll paint the frame afterwards, but and I'm just going to mix a little bit more. That's a little lighter than the first time. And then don't worry about all these little lines. All these little lines are just guides. So if you have a light colored cat, you are going to want to make sure that you get your paint into the lines. If you have a darker colored cat, you don't really have to worry about it too much. But with the lighter colored cats, you're just going to want to make sure you got a nice amount of paint. So the lines are going to show us when we do fur. And then I just dipped my brush into the water, and it's just going to make my paint go a little bit further. And make sure you have a nice coat on everything. Awesome. And once you got a nice coat, on your cat, we will let this dry before we paint our frame. So while I let that dry, I'm actually going to come over here and get a base coat on Harley. So with Harley, we're going to do a nice light gray. So I'm going to get my brush nice and washed. And grab a nice amount. A nice amount of white. And then I'm just going to need a little bit of black. I'm actually just going to use just my little brush, just so I don't have to clean my brush again with the white on it. And I'm talking a very small amount of black. So as you saw with this color here, we ended up going quite a bit darker than we needed, so we had to keep adding more and more white. Black is a very potent color. So I'm going to take in just that tiny bit I put on my brush, and I'm going to mix that all in just to start and slowly add more color in as I need to. So yeah, that was not quite enough. So then just keep slowly adding little bits of black in until you get to that nice tone that you need. Just because, yeah, small amount of black ends up going a long way. Let's see here. I'm just going to grab in my picture. Just my picture of Harley here. And that's very much what I was looking for, was matching this medium gray. And I'm actually gonna just move Weasley to dry. And it's really smart to have your pictures right beside you. So I'm actually gonna paint the whole face in with the gray. But because she has such unique coloring, so don't worry if you ended up base coating like Weasley, where you did all one color. We're gonna go back in with all that other tones and textures. But with Harley here, I am actually just gonna be a little bit more strategic about my base coat, and that's just because she's got so much coloring. So, which is actually one of the reasons I picked her, was because with all this unique coloring, this is about as complicated as we're gonna be, like as we'll get with a cat here. So perfect. I actually still have a little bit of gray, so I'm just gonna continue this down just a little bit further. And I might as well do the inside of the ears while we're here. Everyone with black long-haired cats like mine, you got the easiest job. You just paint it black and then pretty much fast forward until we get to the fur detail. It's yeah, if you have a solid color cat, you're gonna have a nice easy time. But perfect. So I got a nice amount of the gray, and then I'm actually gonna do my base coat down here, the brown. So I can show you how to mix a nice medium brown. So just gonna give my brush a wash. I'm gonna grab white. And then I'm gonna grab a small amount of brown. I'm gonna put it over here on my palette, and I'm just gonna bring into the white what's on my brush. And this is a nice way to do this slowly. And then once that's mixed, if you need a little bit more, just keep going back in. That looks pretty good. So as you see, she's got a little bit of darkness kind of coming in that area here. But then we're very white on this whole upper part of the mane. So with this brown, I'm actually just gonna paint this bit here. And bring that brown in. Oop. Just a little more brown. There we go. Just a little more brown. Didn't quite get it dark enough. There we go. And I'm just gonna get a good coat. I am actually gonna try to, as I got a little bit, avoid my frame as much as I can, just because I'm actually gonna do my frame brown, and I'm gonna do it a watery brown so you can see some of the natural wood grain. So I'm just gonna So if you have a cat with lots and lots of different coloring, this is a nice way to do it in kind of blocks of color, especially if they have something distinctive as a big white mane. So just gonna bring this in. And then for the rest of the base coat, I mean, I'm just going to kind of use whatever colors are. Awesome. So once you have your base coat done, and don't worry, whatever color you ended up going with, we will bring in all the different tones and colors, especially with ones like this. There's so many colors that all the detail is going to come in later. So once we got a nice base coat, we can paint our frames. So I'm just gonna bring back Weasley. So, and then with the frame, have fun and do whatever color you're thinking. So with Harley here, I have just brown here, and I'm going to try to find some room on my palette. I'm already running out. So I am adding water to this brown so it's almost like a stain. And I'm doing this so you can see that nice wood grain through. I'm going to do this one a solid color though, so really this is all personal preference. time I'm just gonna follow along. Carefully along the bottom here. You don't have to be too strict just because we're gonna have our banner and flowers. There's gonna be lots going on here, so. Perfect. Yeah, so it's nice natural wood. And then I'm gonna do a really nice dark turquoise for this one here. So I have a little bit of green still out, so I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna grab blue, and I'm gonna put it just right on this area that I mixed earlier in hopes of pulling up a little bit of that color as well. And I'm gonna grab just a little bit of green, and I'm gonna bring in the green just a little bit at a time and just kind of be a little more cautious. Just mix all that together. Oh, and that actually looks pretty good. Not too bad for when you get it the first time, the color you were going for. Let's just take a peek here. Yeah, that's really nice. That's a nice turquoise that will match the Weasley's owner's house here, so. So with the frame in the background, really have fun and personalize it and make it your own. And then when you get to the bottom here, especially if you're working with such contrasting colors like this, I like to get a nice amount of water on my brush, and then using swiping motions and the edge of your brush, you can actually get a really nice straight line. So I just swipe back and forth. And then just bringing the paint right up to that engraved line. And just take your time. And adding water to get a nice awesome. And just make sure your frames and your cat is all base coated. So once your base coat is done, I'm actually just going to set these two aside to dry. And then I'm just going to pull in these sheets here. And then I have some markers, and I'm just going to take a few minutes to just go through how to do some of the more unusual markings. So once again, these guys here, there is a link right on the listing where you buy the kit, and that will just give you a nice practice surface. So let's just get right into it. This little cat here. So if your cat looks similar to this, and you did a base coat of white, next what I would do is actually just start with the brown, and we're just mimicking these shapes. So that is, I would paint all of this brown, just to give you an idea. You can leave the inside of the ears. We'll do those a nice light pink. I'm just going to do this really rough, but so it really helps to have your cat's photo here, and then just follow all of these natural markings they have. And the nice thing about the paint is we can always layer over it and really get the tone that we're looking for. So that looks pretty good there. And then I would, with this one, coming in, because it looks like the chest is white, but the back is quite dark, I would actually bring in black. And I would do this all in black. Oh, she's got like a little spot. So with things right underneath the mouth, that would actually be right in here for those markings. And then she's got the nice black ones. So then we'd bring black in later. So when I'm doing all the different tones, and then little markings like this on the forehead. I know a lot of cats have the little M's. You just want to bring that in as well. And then a little bit of black up in here. So that is the base coating you would do for this type of cat here, and then bring a little bit of this into the edge there. You could bring a tiny bit on this side, depending on how much black she has around. But that is a good base coat for a cat with this type of markings. Let's just take a look here. Oh, my marker leaked through. So if you're working with, so yeah, someone like Winchester would be very similar. Bibs and Penny. So if you did white as your base coat, I will just move those aside and start with one of these. So I think I can actually kind of show both here. So for bibs, something like that, you would just want to follow along here, and you'd keep this white, and then, oh, what cute coloring. We come down here, and then you'd bring a little bit of that black just in here. So then all of this would be black. This and here would be white. That's how you do, yeah, someone like Bibs. Penny, so like any really black and white markings like this, it's all just about taking a look at them. And that's why we have these nice practice sheets. So you can really get their markings down. This would all be black on if you're working on Penny. And then underneath here would all be black. But it's really nice. You can get some markers out, take your time, and just get a little bit of a game plan for your markings. And if you have any questions or need any assistance, just send me an email. I'd be more than happy to help you out. So if you're really struggling with your markings, just let me know, and I could always lay this out pretty easily for you. And then actually the entire ears are black. We have no pink in the ears here, so I would do the ears all the way through, and then ears all black here. Yeah. And then, yeah, I think that's because then the next marking's on the paw. So that's what we do for someone like Penny. And now this is just base coating. We will get into the fur detail after this, but this is just to give you a good idea. If you have black cats with just a little bit of white, you are in for just a really easy time. Awesome, so that's everyone on that sheet. Put that aside. All of these cats are going to be very similar to Weasley. Flint here, you would do orange just around the outside. So with Weasley, I'll show just because Weasley's got the whole underneath her nose all white. So you'll get a good idea when we do that one. And then actually all of these are kind of similar to Harley. I'm actually going to go through, Pandora, actually Nimbus. Pandora or Nimbus or Jadzia. So if you have a cat who has quite a bit of white and you did your base coat as white, that is a good place to start. I'm just gonna shimmy my little workspace here. So Nimbus looks, I think Nimbus is gray and brown. It's a little hard to tell with the tones. I'm gonna go a light brown just to be able to show you, but with someone like Nimbus, it's just following along and getting these really distinctive white marks here, and then leaving that whole mouth area. And we'd go around, and then this would all be colored in. So Nimbus would be like this, and then it looks like we got a little bit kind of coming in on the sides. And we do this a mix of browns and grays. Yeah. And then Pandora would be similar. So it's just really about being observant about your cat and its markings, and having fun with the coloring. She's got a little bit of black coming under her eye, and yeah, all this would be white. So just to kind of give you an idea, but I'm going to show you very much how to do all of these markings with Harley. So let's see, do I got one more page? Nope, that's all the cats. So print these out, get some markers, and just have some fun, and maybe start with a pencil and try to get some of your cat's major markings. Anything like this we can all do with paint. It's just if they have very distinctive markings like Penny and Bibbs, Winchester, just making sure you kind of block in the whites and the browns if there's any markings. So, and with that, we are gonna put the markers away, and we'll work on Weasley first. So Weasley here is a little bit simpler than Harley. So you can fast forward if you have a more complicated cat like Harley. I'm just gonna bring, so all my pictures are right here, ready for me to reference. Perfect. So just like I was showing you with all of those pictures there, we want to get our majority of our blocking of major colors in. So with little Weasley here, I'm going to grab some of my white, and it's just following along. So anywhere where you see little bits of white, we're just going to get that blocked in. She's got just a little bit above the eyes. A little bit there and coming down onto the mane. So we really just want to block in any of the major colors that they're working with here. That's looking pretty good. So I'm going to come in with my smaller brush, and because she's got quite a bit of little bits of white on her cheeks here, I am going to start. And so in order to do fur, it's using your little brush, getting a nice amount of water, and it's just almost flicking the brush to make fur marks. And you really do need quite a bit of water in order to really get your brush to glide. So I like to roll my brush in, and fur is all just about practice. So if you're struggling a little bit at the beginning, don't worry, just keep practicing, because it really is, once you get the wrist motion and then the right water to paint mixture, and you really do want quite a bit of water. So if yours is coming out and it's quite thick or big or dry, I have quite a bit of water here. And that really just helps your brush glide. So I'm just following along, and I really just want to blend anything that I just painted in solid white in with all of her markings. If you're working with a solid color cat right now, you will actually be doing this exact same thing, but just with a lighter tone. So if you had a white cat and you painted your cat entirely white, you would be using a very, very light gray and adding in all of these little marks. If you have a black cat, you will be adding in all of these little marks, but you'll be doing it with either a gray, or I would take this brown and add just a little bit of white. So my cat, he's a black cat, but in the sun he has a brown undertone when the light hits him. So I would be using the brown with just little bits of white, and just mix your colors until you get something in a nice tone. And then, yeah, just keep grabbing white, and then we're really gonna wanna get this whole area. It might need a second coat if your bottom color is a little bit darker. And then just gonna keep kind of adding in the little white hairs as I see them. A little bit under the eyes. Oh, she's got these really nice. And then all these little engraved lines are to show you what your brush stroke, the length, and the direction they should be in. So those are some nice little guides. So all these little brush strokes that I added in, I'm just following along. So you can start with following directly on top of the engraved lines. But those are there to guide you, to show you which direction and how much hair to add in there. I'm gonna add just little bits up in here. And we're gonna come in with white again after for highlights. So right now it's just to kind of get the main markings. Oh, she's got these cute little long cheek hairs that we want to get in here. So Yeah, really just paying attention to your photo. And then I'm just going to use just a bit of pure white and just really, so there's no water in here. So this is going to be a bit choppier, but she's just got quite a bit of white that I just really want to stand out here. That's looking pretty good. So that's pretty good for our white. So now we're going to mix this dark, it's actually a brown that essentially we want. So I'm going to pull this brown out and I'm just going to take a peek and see if this is what we need, or if we need to add a little bit of white or even a little bit of orange. So the nice thing about paint is you can always fix it. So I always like to just go right for it and check on the piece. That actually looks pretty good because this little M marking, I do want it to stand out. But if it's a little dark for you, we just can grab just a touch of white and we can just take it down a tone or two. So yeah, feel free to add a little white in. So with her markings here, I'm just gonna follow along the little M. She actually has, it's like one in the very middle as well. So she's got the M, but it's more of like a little bit of a crown. Very cute. And then this darker color, I'm just gonna bring a little bit up into the ear area here. And then it looks like we got this really dark also along the cheeks. So we're still going to come in with a medium version between this really light orange and then this brown. But with fur, it's all about layering. Oh, and then she's got these little markings coming down all the way to her nose. So Weasley here doesn't actually have a very distinctive line like the engraved, so you do not have to use the engraved lines if its lines are sitting a little bit differently. You do not have to follow along the lines exactly, so really get creative and add your coloring in. And she's got these nice big, and so it's lots of water to get these nice flowy fur lines. And it's really just a hand motion. So you can practice on your paper if you're not quite ready to go on your piece. And it's just like a flick of the wrist. And it's just going over and over. And that's really how you get that fur texture. And it looks like we got a little bit there. I'm gonna do, looks like she's got, yeah, a little bit of this darker along the edge of the ears. So I'm gonna outline the top of the ears. Top of the ears, and then under the mane as well. And so Weasley is quite a light color. So next we're going to be going in and we're going to be balancing out all this dark and white with a nice light orangey yellow. But when you have lots of tones like this, it's all about taking the time to get a little bit of fur in each tone to get that depth. And you can go really long with your lines near the bottom. That's looking pretty good. Okay, just gonna add a few more dark ones in here. And yeah, she's looking pretty good. So we have our white, we have our darkest tone, and now we really want to fill everything in with our lighter tone. But actually, before I do that, I am just going to paint her eyes and her nose, just because she's really going to start to come together once we get this medium tone in. So for her eyes, it looks like we have a yellowy, like a yellowy green. So I got a little bit of green here. And you're going to want to go with your bright yellow if your cat's eyes are similar to Weasley's. And we're going to want to add white to this as well. Do I have any wet white here? Let's grab a little bit more. And so the nice thing about having the picture printed out right beside you is you can actually just test right on it. So it's looking pretty good. So we'll start with this color, but we can also add light and dark later if it's not quite right. So, and we're going to do the whole eyeball. And so this is like a little bit greener. So she's got yellow and white. So I'm going to grab just a little bit of white and I'm going to outline the edges. In the white. And then, yeah, she's got like a little bit more of a yellow tone than green. So I'm actually just going to take my pure yellow. I'm going to mix it a little bit with that white just to tone it down a little bit. And what I'm doing is I'm just adding a couple little specks, like a couple little dots. So I'm just tapping my brush with that yellow. And that's just really going to give the eye some depth and some texture. So just tapped my brush. And then we will go for our pure black and carefully just fill that pupil in. And if you end up going over the lines, just grab some green and essentially erase it. So we're just going to go nice and steady and take your time. And now, Weasley does have just a little black line surrounding her eye, and this is really going to help the eye stand out. So I'm just going to very carefully put this black into that engraved line. So if you can see that there, and that just really outlines the shape of the eye, and it's just going to make them stand out. And so the key to getting a really nice thin line is making sure that you have enough water. So you want black and you want a really nice amount of water. And water's the key to really getting flowy lines with painting, flowy thin lines. So just to show you down here, you can get just really nice thin lines. And the key is having enough water to be able, but not too much water. I know it's the fine line, but too much water, you'll end up getting it kind of pooling on your brush and it could drop off in almost little like raindrops onto your piece. So you want it wet enough that you just get a really nice flow. And if it's a little too wet and if it's too wet and you're getting this, just tap it on your paper towel and try again. And you can really practice on the paper getting these nice fine lines, but you don't want it too watery and you don't want it too dry. It's a really nice fine line when painting thin lines. So the eyes are looking really good here. And then a nice trick to making eyes look real is called the spark of life. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to grab just pure white, and I love doing this. Usually I wait till the end, but I always get just too excited doing the Sparkle Life, and I always want to do it early. So I have pure white, no water. This is nice thick white. And take a look at where the light's reflecting. Usually I add a little bit of pure white along the edge. And then roll your brush until you get just a nice point, and make sure you have enough paint on there. You're going to want to add just a dot of white in that black. And then here, just a dot of white in the black. So that's called the Spark of Life, and it really just shows the reflection of the eyes with as light hits it, and it makes it look realistic. And I always love doing the little sparkle like life. So just add, yeah, nice little dots. And then if you got any black onto your eye, you can also clean it up with a little bit of white here. You can add a second little sparkle life if you'd like on the side here. So this is just really showing that reflection of the eyes, and that's what makes animals and people look realistic, is the sparkle life. I know when I learned that one, it was that's a fun trick. Awesome. So now that we have the eyes done, she's really coming along. So I'm going to go through, and we're going to get this. We're trying to get this really light tone. That's the majority of her. And then we're going to go through. I keep saying her, but I actually don't know if Weasley's a little boy or a little girl. But they, who needs to go by gender norms? Well, so they have this nice tone. So we're going to grab some of our white. I'm actually going to switch brushes just to mix my color, because I'm going to want quite a bit of this color here. Okay. So to get this color, I'm going to start with just a little bit of my yellow. And then I'm going to grab just a nice amount of white. And I think that's going to get me the tone that I want. Just because we have orange and we have brown, we really do want this yellow. So I'm just going to start by mixing them together. And yes, so I want just a very light, and you can see the difference between it and the orange on the palette. So fur is all about these tones and just layering them. So perfect. So with Weasley here, we're just going to do nice little strokes right around the nose. So I'm just barely tapping my brush. And it really is just about getting that texture. I find fur one of the most relaxing things to paint, just because it's very repetitive. So I'm just going to cover this whole area in tiny little brush strokes. So I am just tapping my brush to get these nice little ones. So even with long-haired cats, they have very little bits of fur right in this area, and then it gets longer the further out it is. And then we're going to want to just pretty much any open area. And then by bringing this down into the brown, that's really going to blend this brown in with the other markings. And then once you come along the side of the eye here, you really want your brush strokes, gonna ruin poor Weasley's, coming out of the eye like this. So I do have the engraved lines in there, but you really want to, that's the most natural, the natural way to get the hair away from the eyes there. And just follow along. And then, yeah, Weasley, they have their fur all the way down. And it's really just about, and then once I get down here, as you can see, my brush strokes, they get really big and wide. And that's just gonna show that really big mane that long-haired cats have. And I'm just gonna just really get really broad with my strokes down here. And we want to add this in all the way along here. You can go into your white a little bit depending on the markings on your cat. So if you're doing a black cat right now, you want to be doing the exact same brush strokes as me. And instead of doing all these different orange and brown tones, you would be doing grays and browns, and you'd be keeping the tones very dark. And then if you were doing a solid colored cat that was light, like a white cat or all gray, you would want to keep all the tones a little bit lighter. So if you did white for the pure fur, you'd want to add just a little bit of black just to get a nice gray. Or if they have any other tones that come out in the sun, this is really where you can bring in all these nice tones. Okay, so now that we've kind of got this area, we're back into our little strokes, and it's just following along these little engraved lines. And just filling in the space. You really want every little bit of the wood, any of these open spaces, to be covered with little fur lines. That's what's going to make it look the most realistic. So we're going to bring, and then don't worry if you end up getting too light or any of their markings aren't too distinctive. We'll come back in with white and then dark again, just to really show those lines. Just gonna fade the orange into the white just along the muzzle there. It's looking pretty good. So that's looking pretty good for our main fur. So I'm gonna take just a little break from the fur, and I'm just gonna show you the ears. So cat's ears, they're all a little bit different. Just gonna go and just reference. So Weasleys, they have, it looks like just a little bit of pink and then mostly white in the ear area. But some cats, like black cats, can have, yeah, completely black inside the ears. Sometimes they have a little bit of pink or brown. Oh, I'm off the page. Like Jin here. Bear's completely black. Pandora's got one pink and one white. So take a look at your cat with the color of their ears, and it looks like most of our little calicos here are pink. So yeah, just have a look at the inside of their ears. So pink and white. So there's very long hairs. So it's going to be very similar to what we were doing on the mane here. So I'm just going to get some watery white. And I'm really just going to mimic these really long hairs. So I'm just flicking my wrist and getting these really nice brush strokes. And then same with on this side. And it's getting that nice amount of water and rolling your brush to that point. And just kind of keep layering until it looks like your cat's ears. So depending on just gonna add a few little white little hairs there. That's looking pretty good. So depending on what your cat's ears are like, most of them have pretty long little hairs in their ears, which is just adorable. Perfect. And then one thing you can do to really differentiate between the head and the ears is we can come in with a little bit of the brown. Nice and watery. And add just a few little hairs to really just show that this hair is in fact in front of all those little long hairs we just did. And then just kind of follow along and until you got that natural progression. So I'm going to take this brown and I'm just really going to make sure all my little markings are just showing and they didn't get lost. And actually, we got a little bit of a darker color that I think I'm just gonna mix here. So it looks like we need a tone in between the yellow we just did and then this brown. So I'm just gonna actually grab my brown. I'm just gonna come over and mix this in. Would like it to be maybe just a little bit more yellowy. Let's see here if that's what I'm looking for. I think I need, maybe I'm gonna grab just a small amount of a red just to get a little bit more of an orangey tone. That's looking pretty good, actually. Yeah, that's what we want. Just to blend in. And it's just about layering these little lines of fur. So Weasley's lines are not too distinctive. So I'm just layering my little bit of a lighter tone just over top and making it blend just a little bit more. So it depends on how distinctive your cat's features are. When we do Harley next, Harley's features are pretty like drastic compared to Weasley's are quite soft. So just gonna want to make sure all of this just has a really nice blend. And getting these layers in. Perfect. And then I'm actually going to grab just a little bit more brown and I'm going to make this just a touch darker. So it's really just about getting all the different gradients of the tone that you need. So this is just a little bit darker and I'm going to come in and just make sure that these little lines, a little bit of fur right under the eyes, looks a little bit more distinctive. So I just want to make sure this brown was a little too dark, so I just want a little bit of a lighter version of that, just to make sure we're really getting the likeness here. That's looking pretty good. And then a little bit on the side. And then you can bring some into your main area if you need to. So now I'm going to go But I'm gonna go back with this brown and just add just a couple little lines in there and just really show these off. And then and just really accentuate any little lines that you'd like to, but I think that's looking pretty good. So just keep layering and having fun. If you all haven't fast forwarded me by now. On to the next cat, eh? And then our white areas, I want them to just be a little bit more distinctive. So I'm going to grab my big brush here and I'm going to go and grab pure white. Try to find a space on your palette. So the fur right around their mouth is really quite fine. So I'm just going to use the edge of my brush and I'm just going to tap. And I'm just going to tap that pure white. And it's just going to give us that little bit of a fine fur. And then I'm going to do the same thing with just the mouth here. And just go quite thick with my paint. I just really want that to be just pure white. And then I'm going to add just a few, with just thick white paint, just a few really distinctive lines in the mane here. And so now go along with your white and anywhere you want to bring white back in. She's got those really cute little cheeks with little bits of white. And then with your pure white, we're going to want to go in and add just a few little defining hairs. So really just paying attention to your cat's fur. So Weasley has little bits of white there and coming off the eyes. And then quite a nice little white right under the eyes. I'm kind of framing the eye there. And then a little bit of brown actually. So I'm just going to switch to this brown, one of these browns, and just bring in just on the top of the eye. Has a little bit, actually a little bit darker. Just a little bit of a, almost like a, it's funny, like a cat eye, but like when you put on eyeliner. Guess that's where the term cat eye comes from. Okay. And then just kind of blend that out a little bit. bring that down just a touch there, just a touch here. Perfect, that's looking good. And then just anywhere else. Anywhere else that needs just a little bit of that darker tone. Awesome, we're looking pretty good here. Okay, so I'm gonna do the nose and mouth next, and then one thing when I'm doing animals and lots of fur like this, I do like to come back and forth, and it's just because you'll see things every time you look at it, so it's nice to take a little step back from it. So I'm gonna take the red and then a little bit of our brown here. Oh, and I didn't even realize, I think my brown's off the, there we go. So, and we got, yeah, just a little bit more red. Just a nice tone here. And I'm just gonna cover in the nose. And then, yeah, Weasley's got a little pink mouth. So if you can see the little engraved line here, I'm just gonna follow along the lines there. And then with the nose, I'm gonna take just a little bit of black, and I'm just gonna follow along, adding just the little nostril holes. Just a little bit of black on both of these little curves here. And then we're gonna want one right down the middle. That looks pretty good. Just follow along. And then we can take a little bit of our white. I'm just gonna add a little bit of a highlight to the top of the nose and then coming down the front here. You can add just a couple little spots of highlight. So it's nice to just take a little bit of a step back and see if there's anything that needs to get moved around. And I noticed on the side of my M, I'm actually a little too close to the inside. So don't worry, it's nice and easy if you do have anything to touch up. I'm just gonna move this over just a little bit. And then I'm gonna get a little bit of this yellow and white mixed again. And then just moved that over. So it's a good idea to take a step back and see if there's anything, because being really close up, there's little things you can miss. And just make sure you got all your little markings laid out. Perfect. There we go. And then I noticed that underneath Weasley's little mouth area, you can actually, they got quite a distinctive little line. So in order to kind of mimic this, I just want just a nice light brown. And I'm just gonna kind of add in and if you're happy with your piece, fast forward to the next part. This is me just doing a few little nitpicky changes. So I just added a little bit of color in here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm grabbing my pure white, and I really just want to show off this cute little line. Let me just... So Weasley has a very distinctive line here, so I just really want to mimic that. And then if you get white paint into these little engraved lines, you can do whatever you want in this area. So those lines are just there to help you out, but if they're not quite looking like your cat, you are welcome to add in any lines you'd like. Let's kind of take a little step back. Yeah, that's looking more. So now that I got that distinctive line, I am just going to add just a few little fur lines just to kind of make it blend. So I don't want just like a, you know, I don't want this type of a straight line. So I'm just going to blend that out and then just make sure that I really got, they're so white here. So I just want to make sure we're really looking like them. And then these little cheek areas. I'm making sure we got enough white in the cheek area. And then if you can see the little whisker lines here, they're an engraved line as well. And I'm just going to run just pure white, quite gloopy, so you can get the idea of whiskers on top of everything here. Perfect. And then I also like that Weasley's got little brown dots where the whiskers are coming in. So just gonna mimic these little dots with the brown. If they're a little too dark, you can just grab a little bit of white. You can just tone them down a little bit. But I do think that they're important to add in there. Just a little bit more white. Okay, and just a little bit more weight in these cheeks area. Awesome. Perfect. So I think I'm happy with Weasley. But the nice thing about paint is you can always come back and touch up and add. So once I take a step back, I might end up adding just a little bit more, but that is our first calico long-haired cat done. So we started, this is kind of a medium difficulty. Harley is going to be a hard difficulty. And then if anyone's struggling with a solid color cat, you know what, I'm just going to get Weasley out of here. So with a solid colored cat, with my Mr. Hemingway here, less is really more. Just because if you do tons and tons of lines, it's gonna be a lot. So I added in light gray and brown lines, and I went very light and very delicate with my lines, just because, especially with solid colored cats and black cats, yeah, less is more. So you're gonna want to use just your brown with a little bit of white, and then a little bit of white, a little bit of gray. And if you end up going too dark, just come in with black and start adding lines over the black. So like we have our kind of our medium brown here, and it's really just following along and adding these little bits of lines. Just here and there. And if you're working with a light colored cat, it's the same thing, but you're just going to want to go a shade darker, adding in his little mane there. And then just very small amounts of white right along the mouth, highlighting the nose and the whiskers. So yeah, with dark cats like this, it really is quite simplistic, and it's just following along these the little engraved lines. Awesome. So next we'll do Harley. So with this video here, because I'm doing so many cats, it's really nice. You can fast forward, rewind, and just really pay attention to what actually is going to suit you. So for Harley here, let's just get right into it. I'm actually going to just start with doing her eyes. So I got some green and a little bit of yellow, and I'm just going to mix those until I get just a really nice light tone. I'm going to add just a touch of white to this as well. That's looking pretty good. And then I'm going to take my black. I'm going to do the pupil, and then I'm going to just kind of continue with the detail all in and around Harley. So I'm just going to follow along the eye, and I'm also going to do this little black mark that comes up from her nose. She's got these little black lines that come kind of right down to her nose. And then now I'm just going to kind of go wherever she's got some black markings. So it looks like she's got quite a bit of dark. And this one kind of comes down. And makes that classic little M you see on quite a few cats' foreheads in the calico and the Torby and the tabby. And that looks like there's, I'm just looking at this photo here, we got the big arches in, and then it looks like there's two little kind of accent ones just in the middle. And then I'm just gonna follow along any of the darker markings. And then these will get painted a little bit softer once we come in with our lighter and our medium colors. Looks like we got a little bit of the markings just here. And then looks like down, outline her nose. Looks like there's a little bit of darkness on the inside of the ear here. And then it actually looks like the majority of the short hairs on her face is actually a mix between black and gray. So I'm actually just going to take the time to just do tiny little fur marks. All in this area here. And then when we come in and we add our white marks, it's really going to add some depth just because we took the time to add all these little ones in. And equal parts water and paint. And I'm really just tapping my brush. And it's a really repetitive motion all along. Just gonna outline where the whiskers are and the mouth area. So you can just kind of follow along your engraved lines. Just outline all the features there. And then continue with these lines. And as you get further and further away from the eyes, you're just going to want to lengthen those hairlines. So we keep them nice and short. Along the top of the face. And then she's got little marks right where the whiskers are coming out. So I'm just gonna add those in. A little more paint and water. And lengthening lines as I get further away. And it looks like the main part of the mane is actually going to be white. So I'm just going to kind of follow along her little mouth line here. And perfect. And that's probably all we'll do for black for now. So I want to come in with the brown just because it looks like she has quite a bit of brown going on. So I'm going to grab just a nice amount of brown here and just find a nice dry spot on your palette. Oh, excuse me. And I'm going to mix brown and white, and I did about equal parts brown than I did to white. And it looks like she has a very rich brown color. So I'm actually going to take just the smallest amount of red, and I'm going to put it on the palette there and just get most of it off my brush. And I just want to add just a touch of red and just add a little warmth to this brown. And I always like to do this slowly just to make sure that's looking pretty good. So just adding a little bit of warmth to that. And then I'm going to get this nice and watery so it's easy to work with, and rolling my brush in it till I get this nice point. And I really want to show this little bit of brown on the edge of her nose. So I'm just going to come in here and actually cover this with this watery brown and going out. And then I think we got quite a bit of brown kind of coming in along the edges. So it looks like we got a lot of warmth coming in more on the outside, and the face is very much the gray. So I'm just going to follow along. Realistic fur is all just about layering all these different colors and having darker tones and lighter tones. And then I'm going to want to bring this out on this side as well. And then it looks like we got kind of a nice light brown in the ears, so I'm just going to go ahead and water this down even a little bit more. I'm just going to get just a nice little coat on the inside of the ears while I have this one. So I'm just going to mix a bit of a lighter brown. So I'm going to grab some white, some brown, and then just a little bit of red. So I'm not going to go too crazy with the red at the start. I just really want to make this a little bit richer than just the plain brown. So by adding a little bit of red, you makes a really nice tone here. Awesome. And then I really just want to show off the little bit of lightness. A little bit of lightness here, so looks like her little cheeks have quite a nice light color to it as well. And this does look like it continues all the way down. And make sure you have enough water on your brush to get nice flowy brush strokes. And we're going to make sure we do this lightness on both sides. And next we'll be coming in with white. So any of these light spots, I'm just going to start with this color, and then the white layering on top of it is really going to make it pop. So just going to any of her little light areas. And then also under the eye. It looks like right on the sides of her nose. And then she's got a little bit of darker underneath here, so I'm actually just gonna mix a little bit of a darker brown and adding that little bit of red for richness. I'm just gonna get these little areas under her cheeks. Looks like it comes down just a little bit onto her mouth here. And I'm just gonna fade out just a little bit of the gray. I just talked to the owner of Harley, and she's more brown than gray, so I just wanted to, it was a little hard to tell in the photographs, but, so I'm just gonna tone out. So I just have really watery brown. I'm just using the edge of my brush to add a very light layer, and just to really make the majority of her coloring this nice brown. And then onto the little cheeks. I think in the one photograph it looks more gray, but yeah, she said that she's very much more brown than gray. So awesome, she's looking pretty good here. So I think the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna come in with white. So that's really just gonna finish her off here. Actually, before I do that, I am just gonna work on her little nose. So I actually had just a little bit of red here, so I like to add red with just a little bit of brown, and that gets a really nice, if your cat has a one of these darker pink noses, if she's got a light pink nose, you're going to want to go red with a little bit of white, or if your cat has a black nose, you're going to want to paint that black. So I'm just going to grab a little bit of black and accentuate that little curve right here so you can see the little nostril area. And then she's got a little bit of a line there. Perfect. So now with our white, I have just pure white, so I'm not going to water this down just yet. And I'm just going to add a little bit of a highlight just to the top of the nose, and I'm just going to accentuate that little bit of a line coming down. And then I'm also going to do a little bit of highlighting in the eye area. So I'm going to follow along the outsides and really just get that glossy eye look here. And then I'm going to add just a couple little lines just to get a little bit of texture. So I'm just adding tiny little dashes, very similar to the tiny little fur lines, and I'm just getting a little bit of texture in there. And then get a nice little clump on the very end of your brush, and we're going to add this little spark of life. And that's really going to make her look realistic. I'm going to add just another little one down here. So you can really have fun with making them look realistic with the detail in the eyes. Awesome. So now I'm going to make this white a little bit more watery. And I'm going to come in and I really want to show off. She's got these really nice marks around the eye. So I'm just going to really get in there and show these off so they come down. I'm just following along. And actually, I'm just going to grab my black. I didn't realize how definitive these little lines coming out from the eyes were. And then on this side too. There we go. And then, yeah, so white with a little bit of water here. And just continue these little textured lines around here. And of course your cat will be a little bit different depending on your marking, so just really look at your picture. And highlight and add shadow depending on their fur. And then she's got really white coming through here. And then a little bit of white coming through on the little cheeks. And then it looks like the whole bottom of the mouth here is also white. And then if there's areas like larger areas that are pure white, you can also grab straight from your paint pot without watering it down and dab and just get a really nice little almost globs of white. And that's just really gonna make it, so this is quite, because there's water added, it's a little bit translucent. So if there's really, really white areas, grabbing just the pure paint and just dabbing it is how you get that really, really stark textured white if you really want that to stand out. So it's just going nice and thick with that. And then we got a lot of white in this little mane of hers. So I'm gonna go this nice thick white with not a lot of water because I really do want this to stand out. And it looks like her fur doesn't come in here, it actually kind of swoops out. So if the engraved lines don't quite work with what you're painting, don't worry about it, just get creative. And yeah, they're more of a guide, so. And then I'm going to bring this up. Looks like we got this nice little white patch. Looking pretty good. And then now I'm going to water down my white, and I'm just going to do just a little bit of blending this out. So I'm just doing a few watery lines in and around this, just so it's not such a contrast. And it's more gradual. I want to do the same thing up here. And then I'm gonna just grab a bit more white. Awesome. Then I'm going to add just a little bit of this lightness just along the outside here, just to show kind of the light hitting the edge of the fur. And it looks like she's got some nice white long hairs in the ears. So I'm going to get these in here. And the right amount of water and the right little flick of the wrist is all key to getting the fur. I'm gonna add just a couple little watery light little lines kind of here and there. She's just got so much nice little texture, and just to really bring out that white. And it does look like she's got a little bit of lightness. Oh, excuse me. Just a little bit of lightness along the edges. And you don't want to go too white. I went a little white there. So if you end up going too white and your paint is still wet, you can actually get your brush watery. And you can run it along and you can really almost fade it out. And then you can kind of use your finger or your paper towel. So I still like the idea of the whiteness there, but I just wanted it just a little bit more subtle. Perfect. I'm gonna add just a couple little. And this last bit is just really being fiddly. It's a good idea to take a step back and take a look at your picture and see if there's any little markings you missed or anywhere if it needs to be lighter or darker. And just make sure you got paint kind of covering all your areas. And she's got a little bit more of a curved area here, so I'm just gonna bring that past those engraved lines. Now I'm going to bring this white out just a little bit further. You don't have to worry about too much down here unless you're not going to be using your banner or any of your flowers, just because a lot of this is going to get covered kind of in this area here. So I'm just going to fade this down just a little bit, make it look a little more natural. And then I'm just going to go back in, now that we've kind of added all our lightness, I'm going to go back in with just a little bit of black. And I just really want to make sure I didn't go over any of my definitive little features here. So I'm just going to kind of bring these back in. And make sure that you can still see these little features here. I'm just going to add a little bit of darkness just to really make this stand out from the ear behind, and same on the other side. There we go. Just a little bit here, a little bit here. Perfect. Awesome. And then really take your time and fiddle with your piece, and just because we're done this part for now doesn't mean you need to be completely finished. I usually take about a week to finish up a piece, so I like to have it far away in a room and have the picture kind of beside it, and then I can kind of keep an eye on it and see if there's any little things that need to be lightened or darkened or added. So just because we're done for now does not mean you need to be done. Keep working on your piece and yeah, really take your time with it. So I'm just gonna layer up this one with the background and just kind of see what I'm working with. Oh, she looks very cute on her little polka dots. And I'm gonna bring in Weasley back as well. So you can go with something, yeah, a little bit fun with a nice pattern, or you can keep it really simplistic and plain. Really, it just depends on the room you're putting it in and what you like here. So those are our two cats. So we're gonna move on and we're gonna do all of our little extras. So I'm gonna set these aside, but I am gonna bring them back just so I can take a peek at my coloring while I'm painting all my little extras. So I'm just gonna kind of bring all of these down here. I'm not sure if I'm gonna use them all, but I am gonna paint everything. And the reason I do this is it's nice, especially with this one here, because there's so many little extras, to have them all painted, and then you can kind of really play around with what you're gonna use and what you're not gonna use. Okay, so we were having, Weasley was over here and Harley was over here. We'll just keep them. So bring all our little extras. And we'll give everything a nice little base coat. With the flowers, have fun with colors. This little one here and this little one here are actually little stems. So with either or, you can actually just, if you're wondering what they are, layer up any of the flowers and you can turn them into to flowers on a stem. And then, yeah, lots of little flowers and leaves and perfect. And we got our little banners as well. Okay, so just gonna get right into it. And I think I'm gonna keep both on the lighter side. So I'm gonna grab my green. I'm gonna grab some white. I'm actually gonna grab just a little bit of white and just kind of put it on my palette here so I have it for when I'm mixing things. So I'm gonna grab some of my white and some of my green, and I'm just gonna kind of start there and mix just a little bit together. A little bit more green. You can also just use your green straight out of the container. It's whatever you would like for this. I'm just gonna and you can do everything the same green, or you can mix a couple different tones. I'm gonna do a couple different tones, so I'm gonna do that one there. But then over here, I'll do these. And then I'm gonna take some of my yellow, and if you clean your brush if you don't want to contaminate your yellow, but I'm just gonna stick mine right in there. And then adding that yellow just makes it a little bit of a different tone, which just kind of keeps it fun for all the different things you're gonna paint. So And then I'm just gonna grab some white. So you can really just mix around your tones by just, like I added yellow and now I'm adding white to that same mix. And then you could go back and add more green. You can add your darker yellow. You could add a little bit of brown. Yeah, you can really mix up and make all sorts of tones of green. I really like when all the flowers, like it looks like it's a little wildflower field. So I like having them all quite different, so. And then I'm just gonna take just my pure green for a couple of them. And then I'm gonna grab my nice yellow here, and I'm gonna just mix all of this in that I have left. Add just a little bit of green to this, add a little bit more white. And adding a little bit of water will extend your color too. So if you're getting kind of near the end of it and you don't really want to mix more just because you don't have much left, just a little bit of water really extends the color. So there we go. Awesome. I think I got all my greens. So for doing my colors, I am just going to bring my cats back and just have them close by. And this is just so I can keep an eye on my coloring and just make sure that what I'm using is actually gonna look nice with my my frames, and perfect. Okay, so kind of the most neutral flower you could do will be white, so I'm gonna start there. And I'm just gonna grab my pure white and do just a couple. I know some of them are small, so your fingers might get a little dirty while you try to get paint on all the little bits here. Using your brush as kind of a stipple is a nice way to do the small little bits as well, so you can kind of just stipple the coloring on. And your white might need 2 coats. There's a little bit of soot on the edges of the smaller pieces, and it's a little more noticeable. It's just from the laser engraver. So each of these pieces of wood I've drawn out digitally, and then the laser engraver cuts and marks the wood based on my drawings. So that's how all these sets are made. Okay, looks pretty good for white. And yeah, I might come in with a second little coat there. I'm gonna grab a little bit of blue. I'm just gonna put it over here. And I'm gonna grab some white. And now I did not add any green, just so it's a little bit of a different tone than the blue I already have, but with the flowers, really just have fun. This is where you can, depending on the room you're going to hang it in, you could pull in a few of your accent colors, or you can just go crazy and do all sorts of fun colors. So actually, yeah, a couple blues over here. I think it's gonna look really nice. I like this long one in blue. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to grab my pure lemon yellow here. This is just a really nice fun pop of color. Oh, I missed one of my stems there. So I'm just going to come in with just a little bit of green. There we go. And oh, I was doing my pure yellow, and I think that will look nice here as well. And if this is a little too harsh for you, you can add just a little bit of white, and it will just make it a little more pastel-y and just tone it down a little. So I'm going to go in and grab just my pure yellow. Paint a couple of these in this darker. And then with these two here, just because we went quite neutral, I actually just want to do a little pop of red. I think it's going to look really cute. These little poppy looking flowers. I think it's just going to add a little bit of depth to this one. Perfect. And you know what? I think the red's actually going to look quite cute on this one too. So I'm just gonna go for it. And I'm going to add more blue onto this one. So I'm going to grab just a little bit of white, and I'm actually going to grab a little bit of black. I'm going to put my black over here because I just want a very small amount, but I'm going to mix this into a little bit of a navy blue. Yeah, that looks really nice. So this was just a little bit of black, a little bit of white, and then blue. I'm going to get this nice rich blue. And then I'm going to go in and just add just a touch of white and lighten this up for the edges of here. So it's really fun that you can just keep playing around with the color and get all sorts of tones and really keep this all looking interesting. Perfect. And is any of these guys are all done. Perfect. Might actually change this one to the blue. Perfect. And then if anything looks like it might need a second coat, so anything I did white, I'm going to give just a little bit of a second coat too. So grab my pure white. And then painting the edges is also optional. Whatever you're feeling, leaving them brown will actually add a little bit of depth just because it will look almost like a shadow. But then painting them will also make it look nice and finished, so it's really just a personal preference. I usually only paint the edges if I end up getting quite a bit of paint overboard, and then it just kind of finishes it off. But I do like leaving most of them dark, but I usually find whenever I paint white, I always want to paint the edges, but any other color I'm okay leaving it. Okay, so we'll just give this a sec to dry, and then gonna work on our little banners here. So I'm just gonna shimmy these out of the way and make sure that this is dry. So I like the natural wood look of the banner. So if you like that as well, you can actually mix this color just to clean up some of the burn marks. So I'm going to grab white, and I'm going to grab just a touch of this yellow. So you really only need the smallest amount. And then this does actually quite a good coloration. And then if you like to see the engraved lines, you don't want a lot of paint on your brush. You want it quite dry. And then you kind of use the flat of the brush to go along. And we'll just clean up just some of those burn marks. And then you can either leave it like this, or you can use your small brush to just fill out the lettering. So, which is what I'm gonna do. So I'm just gonna clean up some of these little burn marks. Perfect, and I'm gonna do the same thing. Oh, Weasley doesn't have any burn marks, so I'm just gonna leave that one. So it really just depends. The laser engraver, every single kit is slightly different, so. And I'm just gonna do the lettering in black, just keep it simple and neutral, but you can have fun and paint your banner any color or paint your lettering in any color. So with here, you're gonna want an equal amount water and black paint, because you really do want this to be flowy. And you really wanna roll your brush until you get a nice fine point. And then this is just patience. Is taking the time with your small brush and filling in the inside of the lettering. Another trick, if you're having trouble getting this fine of a line, it's like if you end up doing this and it looks just a little messy or you couldn't quite stay in the lines, just grab your lighter color, paint it over again, and you can actually use a fine point Sharpie. So using the fine point Sharpie will be a little bit easier to stay in the lines. You're probably all thinking I should have told you this sooner before you started. But so when you're doing this one is this quote's a little long, so it's quite small. But the nice thing about paint is you just have to wait for this to dry. You can put a coat over top and you can try again. Some of my paintings have layers and layers of paint. You would never know. There's actually some of my originals that have completely different paintings underneath. And I've just gotten over it and moved on. Awesome. So that one's there. And then just bring Weasley over here. This one will be quite a bit easier just because of how big. But taking your time is the key. Awesome. We got our 2 banners done there. And then by the time you're done that, your flowers should be, the base coat should be dry. So on the flowers, we can add a little bit of shading and highlighting, and it's just going to make it look a little more realistic. And just if you want to unstick if anything has dried, if you end up getting any paper like this, you can pull it off and then you can actually use a little bit of water, and that will help if there's any residue from it sticking. Okay. So I'm just going to paint the middle of these. Too much water there. So you can go along and just add a little bit of texture or extra colors. With these like tiny little flowers here, you can just, oh, a little too watery. Ah, they're so small. So a little too watery the first time. Let's see here, make sure there's water coming down. You can just add very simple little lines. I'm just going to fix this up. I had a little too much water at the beginning there. There we go. With this watery brown too, I'm just going to too watery. There we go. And I'm just kind of following along the engraved lines here and adding that little bit of an outline really makes the flowers pop. And with these ones here, I like to just add just a few little lines to make it look like it's one of those kind of puffy, little puffy ones. And then a couple little lines in these ones here. This is completely optional. I like to just go through and add just little bits of detail to my flowers. Really make them pop. So yeah, following along the engraved lines is a good one, or just adding just a few little textures here and there on any of that style one. And this brown is really good for any of your yellows, or this oranges, or even your reds. This brown makes a really nice accent color for the lines. And I'm also gonna use this on the red. And then also the yellow here. So you can also use it on some of the green if you'd like. Just adding a little bit of a highlight here and there. Okay, and so yeah, I like using brown on any of my yellows, my reds, even my greens. With blues, you can either use a darker tone of blue or you could use black. I do like using darker tones of the same color. So if you did any pinks, if you did a light pink, use like a nice dark pink. Anything in the kind of the same tone, but just a shade darker would be nice on those. So my blues, I've just got a little black here. I'm gonna go in and grab some of my blue. And this one here, I like to just kind of add a little bit of texture. So I kind of just am just really dabbing my brush on and just adding a little bit of texture there. And then kind of just on the underside of these ones. And more water if it's a little more blue. And then what I'm going to do with these really dark blues, oh, I got a couple lighter blues over here, so I'm just going to quickly finish them first. Any of the dark blues, you actually add a light highlight, and that's what will make it stand out. I keep forgetting that I have two kits on the go here. So we got a little bit of the darker blue, and really just kind of mashing your brush in and giving it a little texture. Okay. So I'm going to grab some of my white, and I'm going to mix it in with this blue until I got a lighter blue. And then on your really dark colors, you're going to do exactly the same thing, but just with this lighter tone. If it doesn't stick to you. And if it's a little watery, just dab it on your paper towel. And then I'm just going to kind of follow along the tops of the flowers there. Awesome. And with this blue, if you have any white, you can also do your little bit of highlights just with another color, or you can go in with a gray. Keep that blue, that little blue theme kind of going here. And then with this lighter blue that you have, you can also go in with your blues and just add a little bit of highlight. So just kind of adding just a little bit to the odd petal, and then just kind of mimicking your darker lines. And this is just going to give just a little bit of depth. And then I think we're going to go on any of your green. If you didn't do brown, I'm just going to get a nice little watery black. And on these ones here, I'm just going to kind of outline the petals. And I like to add a line right in the middle of any of the leaves. And that's just to kind of show this little bit of a curve in the leaf. So any of your little leaves here, if you want to add a little bit of texture. And yeah, these ones here, you can add just a little bit of a line in it, and then either kind of follow along top or bottom, adding just a little bit of texture. When you get to these little ones, just kind of the line in the middle is enough. Okay, that looks pretty good for all our shadows. And then lastly, what I like to do is go in with some white. I'm gonna try to find a clean spot in my palette here. And I don't want too much water, but a little bit of water is good. And then I just kind of go and I'm just adding little lines. So I'm just kind of bouncing my brush and adding little lines here and there just to add just a little bit of highlight to anywhere that looks like it might need it. So I usually like to stick with like the tops of the leaves and just adding a little line of white will really just give depth and make it pop. And I kind of just go back and forth between each piece. There's not a lot of, rhyme or reason. Just kind of adding here and there with something like this. Just kind of getting the tops and mimicking that texture. Like a little bit just kind of goes a long way, and a little bit of these lines in here. And then just kind of bounce around. And this is where if you have anything that's a little too dark, you can actually tone it down as well with the white. I'm going to tone this blue down just a little bit and just grab more white as you need it. You can add little kind of spots in the middle to show the pollen, or really just customize your flowers. And just like little bits of white, they really go a long way to making something look more realistic. Just showing that highlight. And you can also just use the side of your brush with a little bit of watery white and just kind of really flick your brush to kind of get the edges and just add a little bit of texture. And that does look nice too. Just anything that looks like it might need it. Awesome, I think we're looking pretty good here. Now's a good time to pause and get your setup perfect before we move on to the next bit. So once you've taken the time and you're happy with all of the coloring on your cat, the next thing is going to be to glue them all together. So with the cats, I ended up talking to the owners, going back and forth, and I did take a few days to just finalize all my coloring. I ended up bringing the white of their manes both down a little bit, and just did a little bit of fine tuning. But once you are happy with your cats, the next thing will be the wood glue. So we're just gonna flip our layers over. And then the little container here, this is a Carpenter wood glue. So it is quite strong, you don't need much of it, but there's a little popsicle stick here for adhering it on. So I'm just gonna go along and just make sure that there's a nice coat on the back. You don't want to put too much right near the edges, and that is just so when you push the two pieces together, you won't have a lot of glue coming out. If you have a little bit, no big deal. There's an easy way to clean it up, but it's better just to try not to get too much right near the edge. Awesome, so that's pretty good for the main cat area. And I do like to take a little bit, and then I like to follow along, and just to make sure that my frame is going to be really secure. I don't put any on the little tabs for hanging, and that is just, I don't want to accidentally have any glue in the way of our string going through. So I like to just leave those completely clear. And if you end up getting little lumps anywhere, just smooth them out. Awesome. That one looks pretty good, so I'm just going to set this aside. And so if you very carefully line it up as best you can before placing it down, and make sure that we are lined up. Awesome, that's looking pretty good. So as you are pushing the two layers together, if you get any little bits kind of seeping out, all you have to do is clean your brush here. Find my paper towel. So clean your brush and make sure you don't have any colored paint on it, but leave it a little bit damp. And then you can just run it along the seam. And if there is any little glue piling up, you will just blend it into the seam there. Perfect. And I'm just running my finger along the outside and just cleaning up any little bits that might have as well. Awesome. So I got mine both glued here now. So now is getting all of your little fun pieces into place. And I like to make sure everything is in place before I start gluing. And it's just in case if I changed my mind once I start getting pieces on. So it's just nice to confirm that you have everything where you want it to be. Perfect. So once you know where you want everything, I'm going to take anything that I have on top So that's on another layer, and I'm just going to set those aside for now. So those 3 there, and the rest of them, you're just going to want to flip it over, and then you're just going to want to use just really small amounts of glue. You don't want to go too crazy, especially because some of the parts might not actually hit wood once you are putting it together. So perfect. And you're just going to want to give it a little bit of pressure. Make sure it's stuck on there. Don't worry if you get a little bit of the glue coming out. We'll do the exact same thing. I like to wait until I have everything laid out to do that, just because you'll be going back and forth and tidying up, especially with all the little pieces on this one here. I'm going to do the big banner as well, just to make sure that this is going to fit. Because once you start getting pieces in, everything might shift just slightly. So oh no. Always dropping things. Okay, then I'm just going to get my next layer lined up. And then, same thing, just add your wood glue. Perfect. It's going to give everything a nice little push. And then grab your big brush, make sure you got no paint on it and it's just slightly damp. And we're just going to go along and clean up any of these little glue goobies if you have them. And then just wash your brush really good afterwards so then you don't ruin it, because you will glue the bristles down if you don't clean it properly after this. And you can actually just push your brush in if you have any glue in any of the tiny little areas. Just stipple it back and forth until the glue is all blended in or picked up or just out of there. Awesome. That's looking pretty good. And once you have everything glued, I would wait 24 hours before hanging these. You just really want to make sure that all the glue is completely dry before hanging this one off your wall. But I will show you how to tie the little strings here. You can get creative and actually have a lot of fun with tying these. This is a cotton macrame cord. So online there is so many different ways to tie these and knots you can do. I'm just gonna do just a very standard hang here, but yeah, if you Google, you can do something creative if you'd like with your knots, or you can actually get beads to go on the cord and all sorts of fun things. So I am just going to just do a standard tie on mine. So I'm going to get mine to the length that I want my string to be. I think I'm going to want it to hang about here. So I'm going to tie these two just together in a standard little knot. And then just double check before I trim my string that that looks pretty good. And then with a pair of scissors, I'm just gonna cut the ends off. And uh-oh, I think I was cutting something blue with this pair of scissors. So now I got a little bit of blue on the ends of my string. But then with the string at the ends here, if you pull apart the braiding, you just get a really cute little tassel. And then you can just put a little nail in the wall or a decorative hook. And then this one is finished and ready to hang. Awesome. Well, I hope you enjoyed painting your cat along with me. And we'll see you guys next week. Thanks.